All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See what's coming at you. And today we are gonna start to preview the action for Week 9. This is the last weekend of October. Man, it seems like this month and season is flying by, but this is the final month, the final week of September, right? The final week of October. Excuse me. The time going by so fast I can't get my month straight. The last weekend of October, which is basically Separation Saturdays from here on out. You know what I mean? Like everybody's pretty much halfway, just about halfway through their conference schedule. So the races are starting to shape up. Of course, there was a lot of movement in the East last week and some movement in the West, but I think the West is going to take a little while longer to be settled. I still feel like the West is going to come down to the Bayou Classic, whether that's one of the teams playing in it is going to benefit or somebody else is going to benefit. I don't think the West is going to be settled until the end of the season. So buckle up and get ready for that. Also, don't forget we have our Week 9 pick'em. The link will be in the description. So go ahead and do that. We having a pretty good turnout every week. So get down and have some fun with us. Pick the games. Last week was rough. I don't think we had more than one person get 2 picks right. So it was a pretty rough week for most people. But this week could be better. Like I said, there are 6 games on the schedule, 5 SWAC games, 1 non-SWAC game. So definitely check that out. Got 3 homecomings on the schedule today for this week too. So it's gonna be a busy time on our campuses. And a lot of movement going to be done in these races. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel while you're here. I definitely appreciate you. We want to try to get to 1,500. That's our goal. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button to help us get there. Like the video, comment your thoughts on Week 9 action. Who you think going to win some games? Anybody on upset alert? Anything Week 9 related? Hit me up in the comments. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell to be alerted to the videos when they drop. We've been going live on Saturdays after games. Again, not quite sure, if we're gonna do it this week, but keep it locked to my socials, which are SWAC Talk 76 is my Twitter account. SWAC Talk is my Instagram and Facebook. So keep it locked there, and also hit the notification bell so you'll be alerted to when those kind of videos drop. When we do go live on Saturday nights after games, it's pretty fun. We usually, if one of our teams lose, it's therapy, so you can talk it out, or we just have fun and troll. So definitely get down with that. SWAC Smoke coming up tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and our Week 9 recap will be coming on Sunday. At some point in the next month, I'm gonna start to talk a little bit of SWAC men's basketball because basketball is right around the corner. So we'll start to wedge that in a little bit, but it's going to be football pretty much from here on out as we make our way to the SWAC championship game and then a Celebration Bowl. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first game on the schedule as far as my previews go, and that's Prairie View taking on Texas A&M Commerce. The Panthers against the Lions. Prairie View homecoming this weekend, 2:00 kickoff in Prairie View. Texas A&M Commerce has already played one SWAC team. They lost to Grambling 35-28 in overtime. Prairie View comes into this game looking for some momentum. They're 2-5, 1-3 in conference, so the season hasn't really gone the way they wanted to go. They still have a lot of tough games left on their schedule, so they really, if they want to make something happen, this is the time to do it. You already have a victory over a Southland opponent when they beat Northwestern State earlier in the season. So, Northwestern State and Texas A&M Commerce, they're not that much of the same because when Northwestern State and Texas A&M Commerce played a couple weeks ago, Commerce blew them out, and that was Commerce's only win. So, looking at the Lions, their offense is not good. They average 19 points per game. Their defense gives up 31.6. So if you're Prairie View, you got an opportunity to make some things happen if you can be consistent yourself. They're 8th out of 9 teams in total offense at 318 yards per game. They're They're actually fifth in total defense at 380 yards per game, so not that bad on defense. Their rushing offense is also eighth at 85 yards per game. Their rushing defense is fifth at 174 yards per game. The passing offense is actually third. So they're a team who does like to air it out, 233 yards per game. They have 10 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So they have been turnover prone. They had 6 turnovers against Grambling. So if you're Prairie View, you definitely want to try to force some turnovers and see if that can help you out. Their passing defense is fourth at 205 yards per game. Defensively, they have 15 sacks as a defense, with this fourth, and they give up 21 sacks. So they've done a bad job of protecting the quarterback, do a decent job of getting to the quarterback. So again, if you're Prairie View, you want to try to put some pressure on these guys and make them uncomfortable, and they will turn it over. Third down offense, they're fourth at 38%. Third down defense, they're third at 36.5%. Fourth down offense, they are 56%, which is third in the league. Fourth down defense, that's second, allowing only 25%. They are a pretty highly penalized team for the Southland. They have 66 yards per game in penalties, 55 total penalties. And when you look at what they do in the red zone, they've been pretty poor there. 12 or 16, which is 75%, but they haven't had a lot of trips in the red zone. They are 10 touchdowns, five rushing and 5 passing, and they're 2 of 5 on field goals. Red zone defense, the opponents convert 74%. So there is some level of success that can be had there for you, but they really haven't put things together in any way. They've had some close losses, but then they've also had some games where they've gotten throttled. So they're a mixed bag. But BK Jackson is their leading rusher. He has 310 yards on the season and 3 touchdowns, averages 5.2 yards per carry. So definitely a guy who you want to look out for. Ron Peace is the quarterback of note. He's 107 of 181, 1,353 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completes 59% of his passes. And his leading receiver is Christian Jordan, 29 catches, 383 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Also, Tyler Daniels has 14 catches for 243 yards, and Dayon Bilbo has 16 catches for 174 yards. Defensively, Brandon Tucker leads the team with 78 tackles. He also has 9 tackles for loss, which leads the defense, and 2.5 sacks, which is second on the team. Anthony Gray leads the defense with 3 sacks. And Jaden Rios has 2 interceptions to lead the defense. There is a familiar name that does the kicking for them, and that's Luke Jackson, formerly of Southern and Jackson State. He's 3 of 5 on field goals this season, with a long of 52. So, I mean, he's a kid who can kick, he can kick, pretty long field goals. Obviously he's struggling with accuracy this season, but he's a guy who can do that. When you look at their return game, they're averaging only 2.8 yards per punt return. So not a lot there, giving up over 10 yards per return. Again, as an opportunity for Prairie View to make something happen. The kickoff return unit averages 23.5 yards per return. Nick Johnson is the leader in that group. He has 8 returns for 156 yards, averages 19.5 yards per return. Devin Matthews has 3 returns for 105 yards, which is a 35-yard average. He has the longest return on the season of 47. Prairie View has, like I said, this has been a frustrating year for the Panthers. Haven't really been able to put anything together consistently. They opened up the season with a rough loss to Texas Southern. Then they got beat by Michigan State. Then they lost to Southern. They beat Grambling. Lost to Pine Bluff. Also had a win over Northwestern State mixed in now. Just haven't really been able to do much of anything consistently. They've struggled to run the football this season. They played multiple quarterbacks. Offensively, they just haven't really been able to do a lot. Defensively, they haven't really been able to stop anybody. Again, and this kind of puts Coach Bubba McDowell under a microscope. I don't know if he's on the hot seat yet, but I think with the expectations of this team coming into this season, being one of the top 2 teams in the West, coming in with a new offensive coordinator, there hasn't been much returns there. Their offense averages 21.6 yards, 21.6 points per game. Their defense gives up 34.3. So they haven't really been able to put the points on the board, and they're giving up a ton of points. And that's been killing them. Even in the Northwestern State game, they gave up over 30 points. So they've struggled stopping people. The offense hasn't really got much done, averaging under 300 yards per game, 299.7. Defensively, they're giving up 390, so that's almost 400 yards, so almost a 100-yard difference between the offense and the defense. Like I said, they're struggling to run the ball. They're at 90.4 yards per game. They only average 2.5 yards per carry, with 6 touchdowns. Defensively, they're middle of the pack against the run, 155 yards per game, give up 4.4 yards per carry. Their passing offense is 6th at 209 yards per game. They have 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Passing defense has been their weakness, 234 yards per game. They're giving up 11 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Offensively, they've allowed 20 sacks on the season, and they've only registered 9. So they haven't really. I think coming into the season, defensive line was viewed as one of their strengths, and their front 7 hasn't really gotten it done. And then the offensive line has struggled as well. When you look at what they've done on third down, they're at 34.3% on third down, and then defensively 35%. They're one of those teams who I feel like has a good group of backs, but they just haven't been able to get anything going. Connor Wisham leads the group with 70 carries for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. Scooter Adams is a guy who's come on strong in recent games. He has 141 yards. And Lamaje McDowell, who's a guy I like a lot, who's a big bruising type of back. He has 139 yards and 3 touchdowns. But they just haven't been able to get it going consistently. Jaden Johnson has been the quarterback the last couple games. He's 49 of 79, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 512 yards. Also, Cam Peters has played a good bit. He has 802 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. They have some talent at receiver. Shamar Savage is a guy who I like a lot. He's struggled at times with his route running, but he's a guy who can go deep and make things happen. Has 397 yards on 22 catches with 3 touchdowns. Also, Trajan Spiller is another guy who has over 300 yards receiving. Chris Heron is their other receiving threat that they go to. And defensively, Bryce Turner is their leading tackler with 45. Aiden Jones has 44. Fred Stokes has 7 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks to lead the defense. And Jones, Coleman, Franklin, and Zachary each have interception. This is, like I said, I don't want to say it's a must-win game for Prairie View, but to me, it's an important game. Obviously not a SWAC game, but when you're sitting at 2-5 and you haven't really had a lot going your way, and it's homecoming, I think this is an important game for you. So I really want to lean Prairie View in this game, but they haven't really given me a lot to go their way. Now, they did beat Northwestern State, who is kind of battling it out with Commerce for the bottom of the Southland. So this is a team who is kind of on that caliber, but they gave up a lot of yardage and points to Northwestern State as well. So I'm still gonna go with the Panthers, man, because I think that the SWAC, we just need wins. So I'm gonna go with them here, but I think it's gonna be another game that a lot of points are gonna be scored. I say 31-30 Prairie View. I don't really feel 100% in that prediction, but I'm going Panthers for the win. that takes us to our next game, which is Pine Bluff and Valley. At the beginning of the season, this was like a two-pack of that was a combo of games that I considered a two-pack of ass, and that's that's Valley against Bethune and Valley against Pine Bluff. That's back-to-back weeks. I thought all three teams were going to be super garbage. I hate to say it like that, but I thought all three teams were not going to be good. But Pine Bluff they're not that bad. They still have a ways to go. They're in that phase where I wouldn't feel uncomfortable picking them to win, but they also are in that phase where I don't trust them to win because I think they're going to find a way to mess it up. And Valley's just been Valley. Valley has not been good all season. They're very turnover prone. They haven't really been able to do anything offensively, and they obviously haven't won a game yet. They're 0-7 and 0-3. Pine Bluff coming off of a loss to Grambling. They're 2-5 and 1-2. So this is an important game for Pine Bluff because a win puts you at 2-2, and with a game against Jackson State next week, this is a very important game. You need to go into JSU with some momentum. Not saying that you're gonna win or anything in that game, but you don't want to go into the JSU game coming off of a loss to Valley on top of already losing the previous week. So this is an important game for Pine Bluff. Again, it's homecoming, so there's always that extra oomph there. But I think Pine Bluff is better than Valley at this point in time. When you look at these two teams on paper, Pine Bluff has a lot of edges. They score more points, 26.9 to 13. They give up less points, not much, but they give up about 8 points fewer, 36.1 to 44.3. Total offense, Pine Bluff is they're fourth in the league in total offense at 351 yards per game. Valley is last at 242. Valley is 11th in total defense at 464. Pine Bluff is at 434, which is 9th. Rushing offense, Valley is dead last at 69 yards per game. Pine Bluff is at 107. That's 7th in the league. Rushing defense, Valley is at 240 yards per game. Pine Bluff not that far in front of them at 200 yards per game. So both defenses have really struggled. To me, the biggest difference between these two teams is Pine Bluff's passing attack. They're averaging over 243 yards per game. They have 13 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. So even though this team hasn't won and they've made some crucial mistakes in games, they haven't really turned it over a lot. And that's crucial for them, and especially in a game like this. Valley has 16 interceptions. There isn't a team in the league that's thrown 16 touchdowns. So Valley has been incredibly turnover prone on offense. They have only seven touchdowns to 16 interceptions, 172 yards. They just haven't been able to get it done offensively. The passing defense is not really bad, but they struggle. They're at 224, which is the only category that they're ahead of Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff defense is 9th at 233 yards per game. Neither team really protects the quarterback. Pine Bluff gives up 24 sacks, Valley 22. Neither team gets pressure on the quarterback. Valley has 6 sacks, Pine Bluff has 4. When you look at third down offense, Pine Bluff is at 31%, which it still shows the youth of this team. Even though they're capable of putting up points, they're capable of putting up big yardage, they still aren't consistent. And Valley is at 29% on third down. Both defenses are bad on third down. Pine Bluff is at 51% and Valley is at 48%. Obviously, you've heard this name a good bit the last couple of weeks, and that's Javani Gibson. Him and Mekhi Higgins, they make a great 1-2 combo quarterback receiver. 37 catches, 842 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's a great connection. They still need, Coach Hampton says they have a lot of other guys. They still need one of those other guys to consistently step up and become that number 2 guy. I like Christian Gamage. He's been a guy who's made some plays for Pine Bluff in recent games. He has 14 catches for 209 yards and 1 touchdown. Also, Amani Roan has 17 catches for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Higgins has 1,705 yards and 13 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Like I said, for a team to not have a great record, they don't really turn the ball over a whole lot. Higgins is prone to still taking bad sacks and bad losses, holding on to the ball too long, trying to retreat too far down the field, just getting caught in no man's land. So that has kind of been their Achilles heel. It is like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and that's been something that's kept them from getting ahead in games against quality teams. They can start fast like they did against Alcorn. I think they jumped up 14-0. You know, they started off pretty solidly against Tennessee State. They started off pretty solid against Central Arkansas, but they can't keep pace because eventually they're gonna make that mistake, or they're gonna not move the ball at the crucial time, and it's gonna cost them. Zamarion Weber has come on strong in the run game, 222 yards and 1 touchdown. Also, B.J. Curry, 172 yards and 3 touchdowns. Defensively, like I said, their secondary has had a lot of injury problems. They're thin there. So I don't think this is the game that's going to test that, but that's something to look at moving forward is the depth of the secondary. Jamarlin Green leads the team with 45 tackles. Jaden Kelly leads the team with 3 tackles for loss. He has 3 tackles for loss. Anais Lukeman has 5.5 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks to lead the defense. Valley is a different story. I say it every week. I like their receiving duo of Rembert and Ross. That sounds like a law firm. Rembert and Ross, they both are capable receivers. Ross has 27 catches for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rembert 37 for 486 and a touchdown. Jackson Davis, their young all SWAC tight end, has come on strong the last couple of weeks. He has 10 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown. Tajarian Williams has been the starting guy, but Jaden Siska's come on as well. And both of those guys have turned the ball over a lot. Williams has nine interceptions. Siska has 6. Williams has 4 touchdowns. Siska has 2. The running game, like I said, they haven't been able to get going. The Fabian Fant is a guy I do like a lot. He's a small, speedy guy. He can get loose. He can break one. He's averaging 4.8 yards per carry. He's the only guy on the team with multiple carries that averages over 2.8 yards per carry. So just really been tough for guys to carry the ball. Tajarian Williams is another guy who can carry the ball for you, but he's only averaging 1.6 yards per carry. He's lost a lot of yards due to sacks. That's really killed him. Eric Campbell leads the defense with 43 tackles. He also has 6 tackles for loss. And Dante Reed leads the defense with 2 sacks along with Donovan Parham. And Eric Campbell leads the defense with 2 interceptions. I think this is Pine Bluff's game to lose. You know, I think last season Valley jumped all on Pine Bluff. I think it's going to be different for a multitude of reasons. One is in Pine Bluff and it's not in Valley. 2, I think Pine Bluff is a team that's further ahead than Valley is right now. I think Pine Bluff, if you look at this team moving forward, I think they're laying the foundation of growth. You know, there's a saying. I heard it being accredited to Bobby Bowden. It could have been accredited to somebody else, but they say, you know, the growth of a program, first you lose big, then you lose close, then you win close, then you win big. I think Pine Bluff is in that in-between lose big and lose close stage. They're not at the lose close stage yet. I mean, they have had a couple close losses, but I don't really feel like they're at that point where against any team they'll be a really tough team to knock out the box. I think they still make a couple childish mistakes still, but I think they're better than Valley. I think they get back this, and I think they get it in the same way Valley got it on them last season. So I think Pine Bluff gonna win this game like 45-10. I think the passing game is just gonna thrive in this game. I think the run game is gonna make some plays. I think the defense is gonna do a couple things, and kind of be able to look good. I think Valley just in a tough spot. I don't know how they I don't know how they see their way out of this. I said last week, if Valley lost to Bethune, I didn't think they're gonna win a game this season, and I still feel that way. And before the season, I thought this game would be like another game of the week, but I think Pine Bluff is in a better position. I think they're taking better strides, and I think they're gonna win this game pretty easily. And that takes us to our third game of the day, which is Grambling going to Houston to take on Texas Southern. That game is it says time to be announced, SWAC Digital Network. But these are two teams who again are kind of holding on. Grambling's in a better spot, I think, than TSU, because when you look at the SWAC West race, Grambling still has to play Southern, which definitely helps them out a lot. TSU still has games against Alcorn and Pine Bluff, but TSU still has a matchup against FAMU looming as well. So I think TSU is in a position where they can't really afford to lose, and they really struggled to close out games. I mean, other than the Prairie View game, I haven't really seen that version of that team all season. Besides the Prairie View game, they lost a close one to Lamar. They threw away a game, or they kicked away a game against Southern. But that was a game I didn't think the offense played well at all. I thought their defense played well against Southern, but I thought the offense did not play well at all. They hung around for a little while against Jackson State. Then they got throttled. Obviously, they got blown out by Rice. And then they had a game against Virginia Lynchburg that I thought should have been way worse than 18-point victory. So they've been a team that's been all over the place. Injuries, some of it's philosophy of the head coach, with playing different guys every week based on practice results, and just not having consistent guys in and out of that every week, especially on the offensive side of the ball, running the ball a ton and not throwing it that much. I think they really kind of cut their nose off and spite their face a lot this season. But Grambling is another team who I feel like hasn't really took that big step. Now, they do average 29 points per game. Grambling does. TSU is at 18.7. So you're already looking at an 11-point difference between the two teams right there. Grambling's defense and Texas Southern defense are kind of neck and neck in scoring. Grambling's at 26. TSU is at 28.8. Total offense, Grambling is at 306. And Texas Southern is at 251. Grambling's total defense is at 384. TSU is at 333. So TSU is actually fourth in total defense. That defense is not bad. I think the problem with TSU defense is that I don't think they have a lot of depth. So if you can wear them down, if you can slow their offense down and, make them punt a lot, the defense is going to spend a lot of time on the field. They're going to wear down. But I think the defense is pretty solid. They actually are seventh against the rush at 169 yards per game. Grambling is 146 yards per game. And when it comes to running the ball, TSU is at 149 yards per game. Grambling's at 107. Both teams have really good running backs, and I think Grambling's been kind of doing it in fits and starts. I haven't really seen that big game from any of their backs yet. It's coming. I know it's coming, but it hasn't really been there. Catravion Hargrove leads Grambling with 376 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, Trey Bradford has 4 touchdowns and 262 yards. Dedrick Talbert has been a guy that's come on strong late. He had a big touchdown against Alcorn. He had a touchdown last week against Pine Bluff. He has 3 touchdowns on the season. And when you look at TSU with their running game, they have Quintrell Quinn at 324 yards. He's a nice sized guy, powerful runner. He's averaging 5.7 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. Also, Danny Green, I think he's been in and out the lineup. Xavier Lewis is a guy with a lot of speed that can run the ball, and a guy who came out of nowhere against Southern was Renfro. He looks like a bowling ball. He looks like Natron Means to me, the old school name. But he doesn't have a lot of yardage, but he ran really hard against Southern. So I would love to see him get more carries. Jordan Davis at quarterback is the second leading rusher on the team. But Jace Wilson got to start against Southern. So where that goes, who knows? And that to me is one of the question marks about TSU is their passing attack. They're last in passing. They're at 101 yards per game. And they just haven't really, I think they threw the ball like 30 times against Southern, but before that they had been throwing it like 12 times a game. And, I don't think in any level of football right now, unless you're Army or Navy, I don't think you can throw the ball that few times and be successful. Grambling has been an enigma to me in the passing game. I mean, Miles Crawley was the preseason player of the year. He hasn't really consistently looked that way. He's taken some hits, and he's kind of been off a little bit. And their passing attack is way down from last season. They're barely under 200 yards at 199.3. So they just haven't really got it done there. Grambling's pass defense has really struggled. 237 yards per game. They are susceptible to big plays through the air. TSU's pass defense is third at 164 yards per game. But Grambling's defense has been prone to explosive plays. Now, they did a decent job against Pine Bluff of slowing that down. I don't think this is the game where explosive plays will kill you because I don't really see TSU as an explosive play team. When you look at their longest rush on the season is 37 yards. After that is like 20, 28. So they haven't, they don't really have a lot of explosive run plays. And their longest pass play on the season is only 41 yards. Well, I say only, but it's 41 yards. So they haven't, they just haven't really hit people down the field for big chunk plays. And they also haven't been able to really move the ball. So to me, that plays in the Grambling's hands. I think Grambling hasn't, they haven't really been a defense that can slow teams down when it comes to big plays. But I think this game is right up their alley. Grambling's offensive line allows 13 sacks on the season defensively. They register 14 sacks. Where Grambling shines is turnovers. They have 12 interceptions as a defense, and they recovered eight fumbles. So they have 20 takeaways on the season. That's tied with Alcorn at 20 apiece. So they will, if they can turn you over, they give the offense short fields, and then they're able to capitalize. I do think TSU offense is prone to mistakes. So I think that, again, plays in the Grambling's favor. When you look at Grambling on third downs, they're at 34%. Texas Southern is at 29%. Third down defense, they're both at 30. They're both in the same range, 36 for Grambling, 38 for TSU. Like I said, the passing attack for Grambling, I think, is going to be a factor in this game. Because I think TSU going to try to take away the run and make Grambling do something that they haven't really done consistently this year, and that's move the ball through the air. But like I said, I think TSU defense is, at least on paper, is the better defense of the two. But Grambling's defense, they force a ton of turnovers. Andrew Jones makes a ton of tackles, and they can make, they can be a thorn in your side, but they can be hit with big plays. TSU defense can get the big stops, but they don't have the depth. And I think if Grambling, with a mix of running and passing, if they can keep that defense on the field, Texas Southern, and wear them down, I think Grambling pulls away late in this game. I think I'm going to say 28-17. I think Grambling wins this game going away. I think they run the ball for about 175 yards. I think one of their backs is going to have a 100-yard game. I think Miles Crawley is going to have an efficient game. I just don't like the way TSU is playing on offense. I just don't understand what they're going for, and I don't really see anything great from them on that side of the ball. I do like their defense. I just don't think they have the numbers to play as much as they have to play. But that's pretty much that game in a nutshell. Like I say, Grambling 28-17 is my pick there. I think it's a big game for Grambling. You know, they can't afford to lose this game. I don't think TSU is a team that's necessarily in the hunt for the title for the West Division. So a loss, you know, I don't think it hurts them as much as a loss for Grambling does, because if Grambling drops to third game, that would require the teams in front of them to lose at least 4 times. They already lost to Alcorn, who's in front of them. They play Southern. So, you know, knowing that you can beat Southern and have that tiebreaker, you can't afford to lose really any more games. So this is a big game for Grambling, but I think they get the win there. And that takes us to our next game, which is Jackson State going to Daytona to take on Bethune-Cookman. HBCU Go, I think it's homecoming in Daytona as well. So it should be a lively atmosphere, but I don't think this game is going to be. I don't think it's going to be that interesting. I'm not gonna put it past Bethune to show up in this game. I do think they have some. You know, I think coming off of a win against Valley, maybe they have a little bit more of a pep in their step. But I think that defense is gonna really hurt them in this game, and the fact that their offense hasn't really got a lot done either is gonna. I just don't think this team is played. You know, they haven't really played many games that I would say they played a good game. I don't even really think they played a really good game against Valley, but the offense only averages 18 points per game. Jackson State is at 35.4. That's first and 11th respectively. Bethune-Cookman's defense gives up 38 points per game. JSU defense gives up 23 points per game. Second and 11th, second and last respectively. Total offense, Bethune-Cookman 258 yards per game. Jackson State 394. Total defense, Bethune-Cookman 487, and JSU is at 306. Rushing offense, Bethune-Cookman is at 101. Jackson State is at 190. Excuse me, at 177. Bethune averages 2.9 yards per carry. Jackson State is at 5.3. That 5.3 yards per carry is the highest in the SWAC. Rushing defense, Bethune-Cookman 241 per game. Jackson State 120, 112. So the edge there goes to Jackson State running the ball. I've said it every week. I think they're what 5-1. When they run for 100 yards, I mean when they run for 150 yards, I think they're like 5-1. The only loss was to Grambling, which they ran for like 159 yards, but they lost that game. So I feel like once JSU crossed the 150 mark, that means everything's going in their favor, and I think that opens up a lot for their passing attack. They average 217, not great numbers, but they do have 13 touchdowns, which ties for the league lead. They're completing 62% of their passes, which is right up there with FAMU at the top of the conference. And they love to go deep when you start to concern yourself with the run game. And they have guys who can go deep and make those plays. Bethune-Cookman, their passing defense is last at 246 yards per game. They've given up 14 touchdowns through the air. Opponents complete 64% of their passes. Their offense passing the ball is at 156 yards per game. So when you look at these two teams, obviously there's a big difference in everything. JSU only gives up 8 sacks as a defense, as an offense. Bethune-Cookman is giving up 17. The one thing that I look at Bethune and I'm like, that's an anomaly. And I say it every week until something changes, is their defense is second in sacks. They have 19 sacks, which is one behind Jackson State. For a defense that can't stop the run nor stop the pass, they can generate some pressure. But it's almost like if they don't get home, they're giving up a big play. And so to me, that really that's really gonna be a killer in a game like this. They only convert 22% on third down, so you can't even really count on them to drive the ball down the field. Jackson State is at 41%. Jackson State defense is at 30%, and Bethune-Cookman's defense is at 44%. So everything on paper, which obviously games aren't played on paper, but everything on paper leans JSU's way. And I don't really see any difference. Irv Mulligan had a big game against FAMU. He's at 397 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry with 4 touchdowns. Jacoby and Morgan is at 178 yards. Travis Terrell, 146 yards, and he's averaging 5 yards per carry. They've been banged up, but guys have stepped up. Every week somebody's stepping up. Morgan is at 1,236 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completing 63% of his passes. Jonas Fortillion has 23 catches and 411 yards. He's averaging 17 yards per catch. Tyquan Henderson has had some big catches lately. Marvin Landy at tight end is a guy that can get down the field. Janalen Dupree and Terrell are fast guys. They are game breakers on offense and in special teams. And I think this is a nice return game matchup. Dupree and Terrell against Darnell Dees. I say both teams kick it out of bounds and take your losses there. Don't risk a touchdown in this game by either one of those returners. JSU defensively, they're led by Reed Pulliam with 42 tackles. Joshua Nobles has 9 tackles for loss and 7 sacks to lead the defense. Bethune-Cookman, we look at their team. Cam Ransom, he leads the team in rushing at 200 yards. And 5 touchdowns, but Luke Sprague came in for him last week. Dennis Palmer, he's having a pretty solid season, 44 carries, 198 yards. Hasn't had a touchdown yet, but I think he got newcomer of the week. Like I said, Ransom is 80 of 151, 987 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Sprague, he's 8 of 16. For 110 yards and 1 touchdown. Right now, when they go to the air, the leading receiver is Lorenzo Jenkins. Also, Malik Huggins. They both have 13 catches. Courtney Reese also has 13 catches, and Thomas Nance, he has 13 catches. So they have a few guys that they get the ball to when they can. Omari Stewart is at 12 catches. Defensively, Raymond Woody III leads the defense with 50 tackles. Brown leads with 5.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. They just, like I said, they just haven't been able to have a lot of positive momentum this season. And I don't think that changes tonight. I mean, I don't think that changes Saturday. I think JSU comes in. I think they, I think one of the only edges or only angles that I give Bethune-Cookman in this game is if JSU comes into this game kind of coasting because they just got past FAMU and maybe they're overlooking Bethune, but I don't really think that's gonna happen. So I think JSU wins this game. I'm gonna say 42-7. I just think everything JSU does, Bethune doesn't do well, and that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, obviously, anything can happen in a game like this, but I don't think it will. I think JSU gets the win there, and they move on. And that takes us to our next to last game, which is Southern and FAMU. This is a big game for both teams. FAMU needs to get back on track. They do have a home winning streak on the line. They also have a streak of not losing to any non-JSU SWAC team since they joined the SWAC. So they have some important things still in there. You're not out of the race, but looking at JSU schedule, the odds of them dropping 2 games is not that high. So, like I said, for FAMU, probably their best bet is a 3-way tie with Bama State as well. So you kind of want Bama State to take care of business when they play JSU in a few weeks. But I think right now the most important thing is to get back on track, get back to um, playing FAMU football, which they haven't. They they haven't really done that defensively this season, which to me is was I did not expect that defense to not to not be where they usually have been. Um, and they playing against a Southern offense that had their probably their best game against an FCS opponent Saturday against Alcorn. But this is offense who's still still trying to find their way. They did run the ball extremely well against Alcorn on Saturday, almost 300 yards. They were efficient passing the ball. They only had one turnover, which for them is pretty good. Defensively, Southern is a really they gave up some yardage on the ground, but they held Alcorn down through the air. FAMU's run defense hasn't been good this season, so I expect Southern to try to run the ball. With their revamped offensive line, but FAMU still, they still are FAMU regardless of what the numbers look like, regardless of what the of what some of the results look like. They're still FAMU, and that's still a tough task, especially in Tallahassee. FAMU's offense is averaging 19.3 points per game. Southern is at 21.1. So neither offense is lighting up the scoreboard. Southern's defense gives up 24 points per game. FAMU's defense is at 29. Total offense, FAMU is at 327. Southern's at 365. Both teams average 5.3 yards per play. Southern's defense is at 281 yards per game, and FAMU's defense is at 398. That's so undark cloud like of them. Also, their run defense has been porous, 212. Now they give up chunk plays more than anything else in the run game. If you look at a lot of their games, they give up a big run here, a big run there, and the numbers go up. But then they kind of settle in and don't get hit too much more with big plays. But those big plays are available for you. So if you're Southern, who has a couple guys who can break one, you definitely going to want to try to probe and make that happen. Southern's run defense has given up a lot of yards in games to teams who are solid run teams. But other than that, they've done a decent job against other teams. So they're at 158. They can either hold you down or give up over 200. It just depends on how teams approach them. Southern, like I said, 38 yards on the ground. FAMU is at 88, and the Rattlers haven't had a rushing touchdown yet this season. So I think I do think that streak's going to end on Saturday. I think eventually that has to end. I think they do get a rushing touchdown in this game. Their passing offense is where their bread is buttered at, 239 yards. Daniel Richardson has been a really solid quarterback for the Rattlers. And he's a guy that's tough to bring down. Has had some turnovers here and there, but he can make things happen. And that if you're Southern, the pass game for FAMU definitely has your attention. Now Southern does have the top passing defense in the league. They're only allowing 122 yards through the air on per game. So they're not giving up a lot. They only have 2 interceptions, but this is going to be the best passing offense that they faced by far this season. I would say if you were to rank the passing offenses that Southern faced, FAMU is at number 1. They haven't even played them yet. JSU probably number 2, and then after that, you can Nichols, I guess, maybe McNeese. But they haven't really been tested through the air is what I'm saying, and they're gonna get a test this week through the air. Like I said, Daniel Richardson, 1,431 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Jamari Gassett has been his top receiver, 35 catches, 408 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ace Cobb has had a couple big games recently. He has 10 catches for 205 yards and 4 touchdowns. The tight ends, Gross and Johnson, haven't really been as involved as they had been earlier. But that's going to be a threat. Quan Lee's another guy who can make some things happen there. I do like their running backs. They just haven't been able to. They haven't really been able to just thrive. And part of that is the fact that they don't run a lot. They have the fewest rushing attempts all season out of anybody, by almost 40. So they don't really run the ball a lot. They only have 174 attempts on the season. So they're not really even looking to run, but they do have guys who I think can get it done. Franklin, Dean, and Somerset are all guys who I think can hurt you if if they can get something going. I do think at some point that run game has to click, and if you're gonna do it, a game like this is that game. I think you have to be able to run the ball in this game to kind of keep Southern from focusing basically extensively on the passing game. If you get them something to worry about with the run game, then that obviously stops Southern from going with heavy pressure to try to make Richardson uncomfortable. But you're gonna have to be able to do that consistently. And they, like I said, they haven't really even ran the ball a lot, so I don't really know how they're gonna approach this. Southern has a three-headed monster at running back. Dillon leads the team with 342 yards. Rhymes is at 323 and 4 touchdowns, and C.J. Russell is at 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. They all can break the big run. Dillon has a 60-yard run. Rhymes has a 51-yard run. Russell's at 28. Obviously, Southern's offense is going to go as Noah Biden goes. He's been up and down, completing less than 50% of his passes. But I thought that Alcorn game was probably his best game. He did have some misses here and there, but I thought he looked pretty comfortable out there before he went down with injury. But I think he's going to be back on Saturday. So Xavier T-Set is a young guy coming back off of injury. He may get in the mix there. Dupree Fuller is the leading receiver at tight end, 19 catches, 228 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler Kirkwood has been a guy who's come on strong recently. Darren Morris is another guy who can make some things happen. Quay Davis has been a factor for the receiving game the last couple of weeks. Tavian Brown is a guy who had his best game on Saturday all season. So Cam Jefferson, Cameron Jackson, they have a lot of guys now. I'll be the first to say they don't really have guys that scare you, like when you look at the paper. But those guys can, they can make some plays when the passing game is clicking. They have struggled with drops here and there, and so that's gonna hurt offense. But Kelby Givens is the leader of Southern defense. He has 39 tackles on the season, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. You can expect to see him in the mix in a game like this. Southern secondary has been pretty solid, but again, like I said, I don't think they've been tested like FAMU's offense will do. Nayron Jenkins leads FAMU defense with 42 tackles. Deco Wilson there at 40. I still think there's a lot of good pieces on FAMU's defense. For whatever reason, it just hasn't come together for them. And I think playing at home, this is their first SWAC game at home, I believe. So they're gonna be fired up and ready for this game. Playing at home against a Southern team who you don't always know what you're gonna get from them week to week. And again, kind of like the JSU game, is Southern gonna come into this game with their head in the clouds because they beat Alcorn and everybody is telling them how good they've done. Are they gonna come out flat? Or are they gonna rise to the challenge and brag? Southern doesn't have a lot of success. They haven't really played there recently that often, but they've lost I think their last 2 trips there. So it's a tough place for Southern to play. It's a tough place for everybody to play. That's why they have a long home winning streak. I do think the Rattlers bounce back. I saw a point spread of 15. I don't know if it's going to be that big. I'm going to say FAMU wins by 8. I'm going to say like 28-20. I just need, like I said, for me, when it comes to Southern, I just need to see it more often. And, then I'll fully buy into what this team is. But Southern's in a good spot in the standings, regardless of this game. FAMU definitely needs this game because they can't drop another game. They drop another game, they're out. So I think that do or die is gonna be there as well, and that can play a part in this game. And that takes us to our final game of the day, which is the Magic City Classic. This game is on ESPNU, 2:30 kickoff. You can throw everything out the window when these two teams play. You can always expect something crazy to happen when these two teams play. And these are two teams who are doing things in different ways. Bama State has run the ball well this season. They have been a better passing team the last couple of weeks. Although they did have a bye week this previous week, but Kareem Key has been a really key part, no pun intended, to this offense since he's come in at quarterback. The offense has kind of moved a little bit better. They really lit the scoreboard up and fill the air with footballs against Valley. But the running attack has been solid all season. Hose, Clark, Kinsey, Gates, Harris, Bozeman is a guy who has made some things happen. The Keys can run the ball too. So they've been a lot more they were a lot more balanced and explosive the last couple of weeks with that new face at quarterback. That's what, the fifth one. A&M has been a lot better these last 2 weeks. They fell behind big against JSU, but they came back with a flurry and lost by 7. They put up a ton of points against Bethune-Cookman, had over 300 yards rushing and passing against Bethune. Against Bethune. So they have the potential, man. They're second in scoring offense at 31 points per game. Bama State is at 24.7. Bama State, obviously defensively, they're exquisite. 18.7 points per game. A&M's defense gives up 35 points per game. Total offense, Alabama A&M 477. That leads the league. Bama State is at 317. Bama State leads the league in defense at 252 per game. A&M is fifth at 355. Rushing offense, Alabama State is at 190 per game. A&M is at A&M actually leads the league in rushing at 192 yards per game. Bama State is at 190, which is third. Bama State defense, 95 yards per game on the ground. A&M 134. Both defenses solid against the run. A&M leads the league in passing at 285 yards per game. Bama State second in passing defense, 156.3. Bama State's offense is 11th in passing at 127 yards per game. Alabama A&M defense is 7th at 220. So basically, when you look at this game, there's a couple key factors for both teams. A&M, I think they have to take care of the football against a solid Bama State defense. And A&M had 6 interceptions this season, and they fumbled the ball 3. They lost 3 fumbles, so they have 9 turnovers. Not as much as last season, but I still think that potential is there. But this team, with Xavier Langford, who's a running threat, Donovan Eaglin, Ryan Morrow, they can really run the football. And they can pass the ball as well. You have Hambrick, Miller, Welch, who's come on strong in recent weeks, Hewitt at receiver, Barry White at tight end. They have some weapons on this offense. It's just what they're going to be able to do against the Bama State defense, which hasn't given up much to anybody, really. The matchup, to me, is going to be the Bama State defense against the Bama A&M offense. Bama State offense against the Bama A&M defense. Whichever unit wins that matchup, I think that team is going to win this game. And if Kareem Key can play well in this game and not let the Magic City Classic and the bright lights get to him, and he can make some things happen, and that running game can be a factor, then I think Bama State wins this game. And I do like Bama State in this game. I think they win their third Magic City Classic in a row. But it's always something crazy in this game. And I think this is gonna be like a I think it's gonna be like a double overtime game, man. I think it's gonna be another one of them wild games. I'm gonna say like 33-30, a double overtime game or something like that. I always think this is one of the most unpredictable games because the favorite doesn't always win, and even when they do, something crazy tends to happen. I do think Bama and them's playing a lot better than I thought they would, especially at the early season. But I think Bama State defense is the factor in this game that's gonna swing it Bama State's way, and I think the offense is gonna do just enough. They're probably squeezing a defensive touchdown enough, but I do like the Hornets, and that's gonna do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for rocking with us, and we will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.